what you're going through. I wanna be down. I wanna be down with you.
Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Derica and you are watching Shelf Love with D. Welcome back to another weekly wrap up of my reads and streams. Alright y'all, so before we get into this wrap up, let's go ahead and take attendance. Please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, drop your favorite emoji, green heart, book stacks, whatever you prefer, just anything letting me know that you are here with me today, rocking with me in yet another video. All right y'all, all that business is done. So this week I am doing an author taste test where I am pretty much only reading books by Colson Whitehead. He's a new to me author. I've heard his name circulating in the book space and I'm interested in seeing what his books are all about, especially since he has been compared to S.A. Cosby. I have literally just moments ago completed Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. Okay, let's see here. So I will say I agree so far. It is giving S.A. Cosby vibes, so that's a great thing. I did not like that this book was written in third person. I definitely think with the hard topic of this book that it should have been written in first person. That way it felt more personal. I truly, sadly, did not connect with the characters in this book until the chapter right before the epilogue. Majority of this book, 98% of this book read almost like a documentary on the school or the juvenile center, which this book is known as like the Nickel. How do they call them? The Nickel Boys. I can't think of what the name is. I'll put it on the screen, which is, based off the school in Florida called the Dossier School for Boys. So I definitely felt that this book read more like a documentary. Like, this happened. This is how the food was. This is how we'd be punished. This is the treatment that we got. Things like that. The epilogue really just brought it home, and I was like, oh, Elwood Turner, I do like the author's writing style. However, I just think this book would have definitely benefited from being written in first person, so that I could really connect with these boys or these characters and see them as people. It just was written very far offish in the sense of like it didn't happen to them. They're talking about who it happened to, the boys that it did happen to, versus if they would have just written it from like an I point of view, like I experienced this and I remember my first day at the Nickel Boys school, whatever it's called, or I remember my first night there, my first time being punished. Like, it would have just felt more personal. So I really did not connect with the characters in this book. It did pique some interest in me to check more into this school. But if I'm being honest, that's not due to the writing. It's just due to the curiosity of like, oh, I've never heard of this place. I would like to learn more. So for me personally, this book, unfortunately, I'm not going to even give a star rating because it's not high enough. I would not say that it was terrible. I just don't think it's anything that you need to run out and buy. I personally do not want this book like as a trophy or physical copy of my shelf. I think a one-time read of this book is more than enough. But I am looking forward into reading the next book, which I cannot think of that name right now, but I'll put the cover on the screen and seeing how that goes. Like I said, the epilogue really brought it home for me. I did like the narrator, which I've heard his voice before. I can't recall right off the top of my head what book I've listened to before by this narrator, but I do like his voice. I just wish that this book was more personal and written more like a story where I could connect with the characters. So those are my fresh thoughts on this book. I literally just completed it moments ago, and to be honest, I just finished it for the sake of finishing it, for the sake of this taste test, and I'm hoping that the next two books that I have to read by him that I will enjoy a lot more, and that he becomes a new author that is possibly an auto buy for me, or just one that is, you know, always kind of on my radar. So that's that with that book. I was a little disappointed. That was my first book by him, so I'm like, we're not starting off too well, but I am still optimistic. I'm still hopeful that the next couple of books that I read by him will really hit me right here. I get this book, and I think it's called The Promise Boys, The Promise something. I'll put it on the screen of what the books I'm talking about. And I keep getting these two mixed up. So I'm like, I'm not sure if I've heard great things about the Nickel Boys, or if I'm confusing it with the other book that everyone's like, oh my gosh, this book is so good, you gotta read, which is a YA book as well. But that's that on that one, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and finish cooking dinner, and then I will tap back in with you guys whenever I finish book 2 by Colson Whitehead, and we will see how it goes. But in the meantime, you know, down in the comments if you have read Nickel Boys, what your thoughts were, what you rated it, and if you would recommend or reread that book again in the future. All right, checking out for now. And y'all, I don't think that's going to be the case. Now, I do want to give the disclaimer or whatever that, excuse me, this is the week before Aunt Flo's visit. This week is always hardest when it comes to like reading a book or finding books that are fitting like the mood that I'm in, and that books that hold my attention. So this week, when this week comes, I do a lot of audiobooks, and that helps me to be able to like stay up on my reading and to focus, because just this week there's a lot of brain fog and whatnot, and it's always very hard for me to sit down and like read words on pages. With that being said, y'all, Colson Whitehead, I'm thinking this may not be the author for me. So I finished Nickel Boys, and then I immediately went to Libby and borrowed Harlem Shuffle. I will say that the two books I really wanted to read was Nickel Boys and Crooked Manifesto, or Crook Manifesto, but that's a book too, so I had to read Harlem Shuffle first. The overall rating for that was a 3.7, so that was a bit alarming, but I said, you know, I'm gonna go for it. I DNF that book, y'all, is 16%. I don't know right now if it is a hard DNF or a soft, but it was so boring. And I'm sorry, not trying to throw any shade. What I'm noticing that his books have great book descriptions, like the premise is really great and promising. However, the delivery is just not there. He does not write in a way that holds your attention. A lot of his his writing style is more like telling versus showing, and so you don't really connect with the characters. This book seems to be the least favorite of the readers. It shows review after review. I mean, a lot of the reviews for this book are 2 stars or lower. Somebody said this book took me longer than expected to finish. I placed it down more often than not. Somebody else said the dialogue and action were so shrouded in euphemisms or opaque in meaning and intention, alternatively dull and worrisome, that no one could decide what the play was about if they understood it, let alone enjoyed it. Another review says, beautiful prose, but light on the plot and action. This was not a heist story or a character story or a plot story or much of anything story. I never DNF books, and I almost found this unfinishable, on top of being unstartable and unmiddleable. These characters had none of the magic that Colson Whitehead's characters usually do for me. In spite of having significantly more action, the story felt more boring, and I agree. And so I soft ended this at 16%, y'all. Decided to pick up the Underground Railroad. I'm like, okay, maybe this will be a completely different feel, because I have watched that series on Hulu and I enjoyed the series. And I will say this book is a bit better. I do think it's possible that I will finish it. However, it's not the greatest either. And I'm so glad, I'm so thankful that I've decided to start test driving before buying it, because I was able to see if Colson Whitehead is an author for me. Now, you may enjoy this story. You may enjoy these stories. You may enjoy this author for yourself. Me personally, I found it very boring. Not entertaining, not much happening, a lot of telling. And I see that in all of his books that I've read so far, he loves to write them in third person. And for me, that just causes such a disconnect. Yet he's writing on topics that are so real, that are so touching, historical, that I'm like, it has to be written in a way where we can connect to these characters, where it feels real. That's where the frustration comes in, the emotion comes in, where you're rooting for these people and wanting to see them succeed or whatever, when we connect with them. And so I don't know how far in I am on Underground Railroad. I have not DNF'd that yet. Before I forget, y'all, let me know down in the comments, what is a book that had you sliding down the wall, crying, heart gripped, pearls clutched? Let me know, because I am ready to get into some deep reads that move me to tears or close to it. So let me know down in the comments, what is a book that you have read that just really gripped you, that you had to sit with after a while because it was just pulling on you so heavily. I'm ready to be in my feels behind some characters again. Okay, so it looks like I am at 51% of The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. I'm like, do I really want to go back to that? So I don't know just yet, but I may go ahead and finish it just to give myself a concrete answer on whether or not I feel that this is an author for me or not. So far I'm thinking this is just not an author for me, but I know by the end of this book or a few more pages into this book, I'll definitely have an answer on whether or not this is a particular author that will be added to my TBR in the future or not. Let me know if you read anything by this author that you enjoyed. I've noticed that Crooked Manifesto, whatever it is, it's his highest rating book, along with like Knuckle Boys is up there, but I want to say the Manifesto one is rated even higher than Knuckle Boys. So it almost makes me want to just jump into that one, because I did see where people have like read that one before Harlem Shuffle. So I think it's possible to read that one first. You just don't have like all the background information, which I think I'm okay with that. But I think before I tap out on him, I want to read that Manifesto book. I don't know. I'll keep y'all posted and let y'all know what I've decided in the next update. As y'all know, this was meant to be an author taste test, a week of reading Colson Whitehead books, right? It already didn't start off too well. The first book I read was not terrible. It had some promise as to what this week could possibly look like, but it also gave me a bit of doubt and hesitancy to continue on with the plan. However, I said it, I'm going to do it, and I'm very much so one of those people that if I said it, I want to do it, and it's hard for me to veer from that. So I punish myself sometimes. All right, y'all. So as y'all know, Knuckle Boys was the first book that I read first by Colson Whitehead. That book was okay. I know I may get a lot of backlash from that because, it's a Pulitzer winner and it's been nominated for this, that, and the third. However, I think that is due, and this is my personal opinion, right? Shuffle with D. I think it is based off the subject, right? It's a part of our history. It's heartfelt. It's gut-wrenching. And it's our history being talked about. So, it's hard for us to not celebrate or want that awarded or want that to be, pushed through the book space and all that. However, I don't feel that this book did the story justice. If anything, I think it was successful in provoking a desire to do my own research and learn about this school. However, I don't feel that I learned much from the book. And I did not expect for it to read like such a history book. There was not exactly a story being told. It was a lot of just kind of fact dropping and like talking about different incidences that occurred or might occur. It was very dry. I love historical fiction, and the books that I have read that have really stuck with me, one of them being The Yellow Wife, which I love that book down. If you read that book, you know that book hits on some raw, hard topics. However, you still finish that book reflecting and thinking about, wow, she did her thing with that one. She wrote that story so well, while still provoking a desire to dive deeper into the history of the Devil's Half Acre or the Devil's Acre, or whatever it's called. I think it is safe to say that Colson Whitehead is not the author for me. A lot of his books get praised, especially in the Black book spaces. I don't want to bash him. That's not the goal today. I just simply want to share my experiences with these books that I read or attempted to read by Colson Whitehead. So like I said, the first one was Nickel Boys. I'm not even sure if I rated it, and to be honest, because I did not enjoy it, I don't even want to give it a rating. Just more so stick to, like I said, my experience of that read. After finishing Nickel Boys, over the weekend I watched the movie. It was mixed reviews on that, because if you looked at Rotten Apples, it gave it like 92%. If you looked at the I forget the IMDb, whatever. If you look at that one, it was like 6 out of 10. So, I was kind of on the fence, but I had high hopes, because a lot of the times I've noticed if the book is not that great, the movie's better. If the movie's not that great, then the book is better. And so far, the book was okay. So I was hoping that the movie would do it some justice and really bring it home for me, and really touch me. And I was wrong. The movie was way worse than the book. There was no script. There was no additives. There was nothing. It was literally the paragraph or the sentence from the book, and then the scene, and then it hit to something else. So it took the most memorable parts of the book in the movie, and then clip, 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 clip. And then not only that, the movie is recorded, I don't even know what you call it. It looked like a video game, because in the movie, we're looking through the main male character's eyes. So whatever he sees, that's what we're seeing. I'm probably doing a horrible job at explaining this. Maybe I'll put a snippet for you guys to see. What's going on? But it's like a video game. I forget what you call it. I'll put it on the screen. I'll ask my son or my husband what that's called. But so for me, I know that the aim or the goal when I looked into it was to make it personal, to see things through Elwood's eyes. But for me, it did the opposite. It gave it such a fictional feel. It gave it such a childish feel. And like I said, like a video game, especially if he was running and all you see is like the camera like this, and then you might see his hands in the peripheral like this. On top of it not having a flow, it was just choppy. It was just like a highlight reel of things from the book. Not once did I feel my heart being pricked or pulled. There was no emotional draw from the fear or the trauma, or the pain or the anguish that they may have been going through, because it was literally just snippets. Like I cannot explain this. And randomly in these scenes, there will be an alligator. In the beginning of the movie, it started out as a baby, and then like toward the middle end, it was a big alligator. And I'm like, and then at one point when the big alligator came, they were all standing up on their desk. So I'm like, so do they see this alligator? Should I be seeing this alligator symbolically, or is it literally there? Like, what is the point of this? And I told my husband, I think that was my biggest frustration, is that there's so much symbolism in this movie that you didn't know how to interpret things, like what's really happening, what's a dream, what's in his imagination, and art, just like beauty, is in the eye of the beholder. And interpretation of things are going to vary, right? For instance, if we're both listening to a song, you may interpret that song to mean something differently than I interpret it, depending on your experience, depending on the season you're in, depending on your mood, even. Same thing with scripture. You may read a scripture and I may read a scripture, and it may speak to us differently. So I did not like that a good majority of this movie had so much symbolism in it. My husband watched it with me, and at first he was just laughing at me because he was like, why are you torturing yourself? But once he started to pay attention, we both are giving each other that look like, what is this? What is this? So it was hard to connect with the characters in the book. It was hard to connect with the characters in the movie. There was just such a detachment, which is so strange because the director's whole goal for recording the movie that way was to make it more personal, for you to feel that raw fear, for you to feel that raw emotion. But it was an absolute miss. So after that, I moved on from Nickel Boys and I tried to pick up Harlem Shuffle. And y'all, I was having issues with Libby. It was saying it was available, but I couldn't borrow it. I called the library. Like, I was really trying to get this book. Finally worked it all out. I was able to check the book out. DNF that book at 16%. DNF that book at 16%. Like, it just wasn't it. It just wasn't it for me. And I really wanted it to be. But as I said before, his books are really promising as far as like the book description. However, the delivery just is not there. So I will not be rating that book either. So then we DNF that book and I tried to pick up The Underground Railroad. And I will say it held my attention a bit more than Harlem Shuffle. And it held my attention a bit more than the Nickel Boys. And that could be because I am fascinated with the whole Underground Railroad system that we created as a people to help, slaves escape and things like that. So it could have been a little bit biased because I like that topic. I like to learn about that topic. However, it just wasn't it. So I DNF'd that book at 51%. But to be honest, I probably mentally DNF'd that book at about 20% and just kept going, hoping that at some point something was going to pique my interest and I would just eat this book up. But that didn't happen. As y'all know, I had stated before that Crook Manifesto seemed to get better reviews than all the books that I just named. And so I was like, maybe I'll just pick that book up and just see, what the hype is about, see if I enjoyed that book, more. But I had no desire to. So once I paused Underground Railroad at like 50 something percent, I went and looked that up as well on Prime because I thought I had watched a series, but I actually had watched another series on Hulu called The Underground Railroad, which I'm pretty sure is the name. And that's with, what's his name? Aldous Hodge and Journey, whatever her name is. I'll put that one on the screen. That's the one I had watched. And I enjoyed that one. But once I did my little research, I realized that, oh, that's not the one that I had watched. So my husband and I started that series. And I will say the series is a lot more enjoyable than the book. There's 10 episodes total, and I believe we're on episode 4 or 5. We're eating that up. It's holding our attention. Very interesting, very well done. You feel the emotion, you feel the intensity, the fear, all that. So this is one of those cases where the movie or the show is better than the book. So I thought that once I started the series, it would prompt me, it would move something in me to make me want to finish the book. Circled back around, tried to read the book, and I just couldn't do it. Like, there's no desire in me to finish this book. There's no desire in me to read another book by Colson Whitehead, and that's no shade to him. He's just not my cup of tea. And when something's not our cup of tea over here, we just sip something else. So yeah, I think it's safe to say this is not an author that I will be picking up another book from. I did not enjoy my experience with this author, but that is not to say that you won't read these same books and eat them up, right? So that was just my experience with Colson Whitehead. And I'm so glad, once again, I test drove before buying the car, and I'm trying to do better about that, like I said, especially with new authors, because I don't want to end up with a lot of books on my shelf that I won't pick up again. The whole point for me having a my own personal library is to have books that I enjoyed reading that I can see myself picking up again. I don't want to have a shelf full of books that were just new or hyped or trending or pretty, but I won't pick them up. We're not doing that. We are being good stewards of our coins and our space. So outside of the Colson Whitehead books, I did finish A Place Where You Loved Me. And I finished this like a week ago, but I don't think that I ever got around to talking to you guys about it. As y'all know, this was a book that I just was kind of picking up here and there because it's on my Kindle and reading in the background. So I literally would read maybe 5 pages here, 2 pages there, 3 chapters here. Just enjoying my time with that book. And I will say, I really enjoyed this book, y'all. Really enjoyed this book. This story was just so unique in the sense of like the double worlds, Let me go ahead and read the book description for anyone who doesn't know. So it says, love knows no bounds. Every November in the town of Morgan, something phenomenal happens. For 10 days, a mirage appears in the sky, a complete replica of Morgan, floating upside down above the tiny Washington town. Miles is a man at odds with ambition. For him, it's all just another excuse to bar hop with his friends, continue his daily routine of, well, nothing. But life is great for Miles, or so he believes. He's got his toxic on again, off again relationship with his high school sweetheart, which is currently off again, an endless supply of liquor, and his simple life as a handyman in the small specific town he never plans on leaving. And then on the first night of the annual festival celebrating the phenomenon in the sky, a mysterious woman approaches Miles with an impossible familiarity. She seemed very familiar to him. I can never say that word, so he runs into a mysterious woman who seems very familiar to him. Over the span of 10 disorienting nights beneath a mirrored sky, Miles finds himself consumed by this stranger and her outlandish claims of a life they've shared. A life Miles knows can't be possible, all while battling the sudden resurgence of dreams and memories of the past he's fought to bury, along with the traumas that's made him the man he is today. A Place Where You Loved Me is a story of complicated love, grief, and the difficult journey of healing. All right, so it looks like Raina read this book a few months ago. She gave it 4 stars. It's Alicia? Is that my Alicia? Okay, yeah, it is my Alicia. And then my girl Alicia, she is my like one of my IG Bookstagram friends. Love her personality. She does not have a YouTube. I've been trying to get her to come over here, but you definitely should check her out on Instagram. I'll put her information down in the description. But she says Alicia rated it 4 stars. She says, this book had my emotions all over the place. I had a lot of fun reading this, and I think it's so different than anything I've ever read before. I agree. I love the concept of the kind of alternate reality vibes, and I think that's what kept my attention the most. I didn't guess the twist, and it really did have my mouth on the floor. Outside of these elements, the romance was really cute, and I felt like it was real overall enjoyed. Absolutely, hands down, agree with Alicia. And I look forward to reading more by this author. Like, I did not expect to enjoy that book as much as I did. Let me see, did I rate it? Yeah, I rated it 4 stars. I was gonna say like maybe I wanted more, but no, it really gave me enough. just something was missing for me that I didn't quite land on 5 stars for this book, but I really, really did enjoy my experience with this book and would love to read more by this author, y'all. Like, this book really moved me, really touched me. I felt frustrated at times, you know, I felt sorry and empathetic for some of the characters at different times. I was rooting for this relationship while at the same time, like, is this a healthy relationship where it's just y'all don't want nothing outside of this, don't want to really do anything with your life, y'all just kind of very lackadaisical going through, you know, life together. But in the end, I did root for them. I love the relationship between Jordan and his brother, and I would recommend this book, and I would most definitely read it again. I love the cover, want it on my shelf. Thank you so much, Raina, for putting that on my radar, because had you not read it, I wouldn't even thought to pick this up. I hadn't even heard of it. So definitely recommend that book. So with that being said, let's move on to my streams. I also started watching Amos and Andy, I believe that it's called. And that was prompted by the Nickel Boys. He mentioned it in his book that his grandmother used to watch it. I knew about this in the back of my mind, but I wasn't really sure. I was like, no, you know, let me check this out. I love old movies. I love classics. I love black and white. So went on YouTube and found this channel, which I'll put in the book description, that has a lot of the old black classics, and watched an episode of Amos and Andy and loved it down. Like, it was funny, especially for its time, and it really held my attention. And since then, I've watched a few more episodes. It's kind of become like a part of my nighttime routine, especially being that it's a black and white series. It kind of helps to calm everything down and get me ready for bed. Really enjoyed it, so it has become a part of my classic watches, up there with like I Love Lucy, Sanford and Son, Good Times, all those shows like that. It's now up there. And the show did start out on the radio, and at that time it was white people playing black characters, so I could see how maybe if they said or did something that was a bit on the stereotypical side, how there could be some offense. But once it moved from the radio to television, it was an all black cast, so I really enjoyed it. If you have not ever watched it, please support our old classics, like keep them rotating, you know, let our children learn about them and things like that. But that is my wrap up for this past week. It was crazy. Did not go how I intended at all. Like, I expected to love Colson Whitehead's books down, but again, that's just a part of the reading experience. You're gonna love some others not so much. But that's why we have these author tastes before purchasing. That way we are familiar with the author and their writing style, and know if they are for us or not. So that's it, y'all. I hope y'all are having a blessed, safe weekend. I hope y'all are getting some time to rest, read, and relax. And until next time, don't forget to show yourself some love today.
With you, down with you.